So for the next episode of Performance Programming Simplified, we're going to go over general gymnastics stuff. So we're not going to go over anything in particular with gymnastics. I'll maybe give an example here or there, but this is mostly going to be just general trends that we see across gymnastics and how to kind of program around them. So from last episode, we can apply our framework here. And so the first step of the framework was to make sure that we have the mobility and then the strength to execute the movement. Once we can do the movement successfully, then we practice it. We build volume and a little bit of movement economy, so we get really efficient at the movement. And then from there, we can start to stress the movement once you feel comfortable with it. And so we're going to go over the gymnastics mobility requirements for most gymnastics. This is going to cover most gymnastics movements. The gymnastics strength requirements, so the requisite strength that you'll need to execute most of the common gymnastics movements. What the appropriate volumes and set sizes are for gymnastics. So once you can do the gymnastics movements, how many should you be able to do and how many should you be doing during a training session, and how big of sets should you be able to do, and then how to apply stress to a gymnastics movement. So the first step is mobility, and mobility does not equal flexibility. Mobility means that you have active control over the tissue through the full range of motion. So it's one thing to be flexible, right? Like if you can bend over and touch your toes, that's great. You have the flexibility to do so, but to have mobility, the way that I'm looking at mobility is, can you bend over and touch the toes and stand back up with load and with control, right? And so we're not passive, but can we have active control over the tissue through an entire range of motion, not just do we have the range of motion? Okay, and so for the wrist, it's going to be wrist extension. Shoulder, it's going to be shoulder flexion and extension. For the back, it's going to be thoracic extension, lumbar flexion, and lumbar extension. The hip, you're going to need internal and external rotation. For the knee, you're going to be able to need to flex the knee. Obviously, you'll need to extend the knee, but the flexion is the end range of motion. And then in the ankle, you're going to need to be able to dorsiflex and pronate. All right. And so dorsiflexion is your ability to push your knee over your toe with your foot flat, and pronate is your ability to roll into the arch slightly. And the reason I say you want to be able to pronate is because pronation will help with pistol squats. And so the main gymnastics movement for the lower body is pistol squats. And so you need to be able to push the knee forward in order to do a pistol. You need to be able to and to do that, you need to get a deep angle of knee flexion. You need to be able to dorsiflex the ankle, and you also, for a lot of times, people feel really comfortable when they internally rotate the hips slightly with the pistol squat, and to do that, you end up having to pronate the foot just slightly. Wrist extension is for handstand walks. Sorry, I should have gone over this first. Shoulder flexion would be for a fully flexed shoulder is all the way overhead. And so being able to get into a deep flexed shoulder will be beneficial for handstand walking so that you can stack yourself very easily. And it'll increase your ability to get into the arch position of the kip. And then shoulder extension is the bottom of the dip. And so you need to have shoulder extension so that you can get to the bottom of the dip. You can get to the bottom of a deficit parallel handstand push-up, right? Back thoracic extension goes with shoulder flexion, so that will help you get yourself stacked when you are doing a handstand walk at the end of a handstand push-up rep, and then also during the arch of the kipping swing. And then lumbar flexion and lumbar extension, you'll need those for handstand walking. Also, you'll need to be able to extend the lumbar spine just slightly to help manage and control. And then you're going to need lumbar flexion for things like toes to bar and pistols. Okay. So how to contextualize this, and I started to go over this already, but not only do you need to be able to pass through these ranges of motion, but you need to be able to load the entire range of motion as well. Okay. And so It's not, can you get into a deep flexed position in the shoulder? Can you get into a really deep shoulder extension? It's, can you flex the shoulder or support yourself in a handstand hold with 50% of your body weight, one per, 50% per arm would be your entire body weight. Same thing with like shoulder extension in the dip, right? And it's not, can you just flex your hip, right? Can you dorsiflex the ankle? Can you flex the knee? But can you do all of that with your entire body weight? Because that's what is required when you go to do a pistol squat. The strength requirements for gymnastics are going to be dependent on your body weight, of course. But once you can pass through that range of motion, you have control over the tissue through that range of motion, you should be able to execute a strict, meaning non-kipping contraction through the entire relevant range of motion. So when we look at a ring dip, it's crazy to me how many people try and do ring muscle ups when they can't do an effective full range of motion ring dip, right? And so you need to be able to get yourself into the deepest flexed or extended shoulder position that you can, and then press yourself from that position safely and effectively in order to even be able to do a ring muscle up, right? And so to build that strength, when we go into the movement specific applications of this framework, I will go over how to build that strength. But the strength requirements are such that you can do the rep, right? And I'm sure there's plenty of resources out there that have like, you need to do X amount of pull-ups in order to do a ring muscle up or this or that. And I'll get into strength exercises again in the future when we apply this. But this is, you need the strength also. It's not just technique and swinging on the pull-up bar in order to do a muscle up. So once you can do reps, it is in your best interest to practice and accumulate volume and work towards set size, okay? And so it's not, I all of a sudden got myself a ring muscle up and now I am going to do every open workout that had ring muscle ups in it to test it, okay? It's practice ring muscle ups. And here we're looking at functional volume on the left and set size on the right. And functional volume is how many reps you can expect to see in a competition workout, okay? For muscle ups, you need to be able to do 30 to 40 in a workout if you're looking at completing the workout or getting a competitive score in that workout, depending on whether or not it's for time or an AMRAP, okay? I'll let you read the rest of those. You can pause the video here and read the rest of them. But in terms of building your capacity to do a movement, once you have, unlocked that movement, you will want to build up to the point where you can successfully complete this number of reps in any given training session, okay? Then, once you can do that, you can start to work towards the thing, which is set size. And set size is when we look at trying to string that many reps together unbroken, because that's generally what we see in competitions. Now, there are exceptions to this because there are chippers that exist where you'll have to do 60 toes to bar in a row, and that's going to be a different kind of skill set, and you're going to approach it differently. But in general, when we look at online qualifier workouts and just workouts in general, competitions, you're seeing between 8 and 12 unbroken ring or bar muscle ups, right? You're seeing programmed toes to bar in sets of 15 to 20 reps, right? And of course, there's like, you might have a set where it's like 21, 15, 9, but on average, it's going to be around there. And so having the ability to consistently do that many reps unbroken is going to allow you to get to that movement in the workout, knock that movement off of your list, and move on to the next movement. All right. Now, of course, you're going to look at this and say, what if the AMRAP you're doing 8 rounds of it and it's got 8 ring muscle ups in it or whatever? It's a crazy, ungodly amount of ring muscle ups. Sure. Then we want to, be ready for a different type of training for that. But in general, these are kind of the set sizes that you want to be targeting. If you can do these amounts of reps unbroken for all these given movements, you're going to be in a really good spot. For burpee variations and box jump variations, those are orange because those also have a work rate applied to them, which means when doing a strict handstand push-up, rope climbs, chest to bar pull-ups, a lot of these like cyclical gymnastics movements tend to have a more or less set speed that you complete them at. A lot of times that speed is dependent on your anthropometrics, but for burpees and box jump overs, you can train them to be faster at them. And so you'll see them in sets of 10 to 15 for the burpees and 10 to 20 for the box jump overs. When you go to train those, it's going to be more about being able to do X amount of reps in a certain amount of time and do them with a certain amount of speed, not just be able to do 15 burpees unbroken. Because truthfully, if you're watching this podcast, if you're a competitive athlete, you better be able to do 15 unbroken burpees. So here is how we would apply stress to a gymnastics movement. First, you would just practice, and that would be no stress added to the movement. You have time to record yourself doing the movement. During your rest, you can watch a video and see, did I get better at this movement, right? Am I applying technical changes? Am I emulating somebody who is very good at this movement? From there, we can add a little bit of light general fatigue. And what that looks like is, you're going to do a handful of muscle up reps, and then you're going to go and ride the bike until you feel ready to go again. And that bike speed is going to be very easy. Okay. And so there's very light general fatigue. This is often added in the form of cyclical modalities, meaning rowing machines and bikes. I don't love the ski erg because ski erg tends to interfere a lot more than rowing and biking does with the common gymnastics movements. But it is another option that you can use for somebody who's very strong or very skilled in the upper body. From there, then we can add a little bit of a time constraint, right? And so this might look like we go from during your rest, you're just going to hop on the bike and go easy, to every 3 minutes do X number of reps and then get on the bike and bike easy until the 3 minutes is up. So there's a little bit of a pinch there once you've applied that that stressor of having to be at the mercy of the clock, not the mercy of when you are ready to go. All right. And then a moderate time constraint would just be pinching that time down a little bit. You don't even need to include the cyclical part of this. If you're training like, let's say strict handstand push-ups, you might be like, let's do 5 every 30 seconds for 10 rounds. Right. And that would be pretty challenging. You would have a pretty tough, set of work there. From there, you can move to density, okay? And when we move to density, we're looking at trying to do a lot of big unbroken sets, and those will probably be accompanied with larger rest intervals, okay? From density, you can move into non-complementary interference, all right? Non-complementary interference will be using something like the ski erg and maybe a weighted modality to challenge the movement. And this is a good, I like using this for things like handstand push-ups because there's a certain number of times that you can bash your head into the ground before you start to get sick of doing strict handstand push-ups or kipping handstand push-ups, right? And so one way that you could use non-complementary interference, meaning it really kind of bogs down those individual muscle fibers, would be like a ski erg into some dumbbell push press into some strict handstand push-ups. And you do that, you've fatigued the muscle fibers, you get a nice touch on the strict handstand push-up. Granted, you have to be able to do them, especially with that level of fatigue. But you're going to get a similar touch on the handstand push-up without having to do maybe 100 reps, depending on how skilled the athlete is. And now that non-complementary interference is a good way of working density for a more skilled athlete. From here, where we have this light general fatigue at the top there, kind of like the moderate zone, you can go down and you can do moderate general fatigue with complementary interference. And so this might be something like you've got ring muscle ups and you want to challenge them a little bit. You want to make it a little bit more contextual than just riding the bike. It might include something like some goblet squats and some double unders or some walking lunges or something. A movement that's going to kind of like give you that underlying level of fatigue, but it's not going to be directly interfering with the tissues necessary to execute the ring muscle up. Okay. And then from there you can pop over, you can start adding in complementary interference, or you can add some intensity, right? And when we add intensity, intensity is going to be things like double under, thruster, ring muscle up, shorter rest periods, more intensity. Maybe you're on the bike, it's like bike at 80 RPMs for the guys, 70 for the ladies for 30 seconds, get off, do as many unbroken ring muscle ups as you can, rest a minute before you start the next set, right? So, and as you move down this kind of flow chart here, you will see that the amount of intensity is increasing and it is also becoming more fatiguing. And an important note here is that severe general fatigue and complementary interference allow you to do more reps, right? And so when I look at non-complementary interference versus complementary interference, non-complementary interference ends up being less intense because the nature of you doing skier dumbbell push press into handstand push-ups is going to slow you down, right? You will not be able to rip through handstand push-up reps at the same rate as if instead of doing ski and dumbbell push press before, you did bike and walking lunge, and then you went up, right? Like you're going to be able to cycle through the handstand push-up faster since all of the tissues are being like the fatigue and the stress is being distributed evenly across the different tissues and movement patterns. You end up being able to produce more power, and therefore it becomes more fatiguing and it becomes more intense. So that's a general framework there. Okay. That's the end of this. This is how you would apply stress. If you have any questions, please leave a comment. You can shoot me a DM on Instagram. It's at Spencer Coaches in Instagram. And then, give me a follow, like the thing, and we'll keep rocking.